Now that the college season is over, let's rank the top 30 prospects for the 2024 NBA draft. I did this in the preseason and the midseason as well, so throughout this video, you will see 3 different rankings on your screen. You'll see what I currently have them right now, what they were preseason, and what they were in the midseason update. We're going to be going from 30 to 1 in this, and remember, this is just my subjective list. If you agree or disagree with any of my rankings, please let me know in the comments. If you guys do enjoy this 2024 draft content, I would really appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already. Gonna be plenty of 2024 draft content coming on the channel as we lead up to the draft. So before we get in, I got 5 honorable mentions. First one is Tristan Da Silva of the Colorado Buffaloes. I got Deron Holmes of the Dayton Flyers, Tyler Kolek of Marquette, Trey Alexander of Creighton, and AJ Mitchell of Santa Barbara. I would pretty much take all these guys in the first round. I just have 35 prospects, and these were the first 5 out. So to start things off, we're gonna have Ethan Almanza of the G League Ignite, a big man that is a great touch around the rim. He's gonna be 19 years old at the start of his rookie season. He's a physical inside presence, good size, good strength right now, and I think he could be somewhat of a solid defender and a good pick and roll player in the next level. He's gonna take a little bit of time to develop, but I would definitely take him in the first round, coming in at number 30. Next up, we got Dylan Jones of Weber State coming in at 29. This dude is a 3-level scorer. He was a redshirt freshman and it basically is a 4-year college player coming into this draft. So a little bit on the older side. So I'd like to see him get drafted to a team that is competing for the playoffs because I think he can contribute right away. But there's just so many aspects of Jones's game that I love. He's a 3-level scorer. He could play make really well, and the dude is a flat-out hustle player. He could play all 48 minutes of a game. He's got great athleticism, and if that 3-point shot can develop, and I think it will, because he got to the line a ton in the Big Sky Conference, and I think his 3-point shot is going to develop because he was a fantastic free throw shooter. He's going to be well worth a first-round pick. So it's looking like that Johnny Furphy of the Kansas Jayhawks is going to declare for the 2024 draft, but it's still up in the air right now. So for my ranking, he's coming in at number 28, and the moment I'm making this video, he hasn't made his decision yet, so I'm going to act like he is going in the draft. 28th ranked prospect. I do think he should stay another year at Kansas. I don't think he's NBA ready, but he could definitely benefit from just being in a G League system and getting some April run on maybe a bad team. But he's got great size and somebody at 6'9", a good ball handle, and he could be a very elite 3-point shooter in this league, a very good off-ball player. And with that size and framing, the potential he has, it's definitely worth a first-round pick, so he's coming in at number 28. Coming in at 27, we got Carlton Carrington, Bub Carrington of the Pittsburgh Panthers. He's one of my favorite point guard prospects that I would take outside the lottery in this draft. Incredibly young player, one of the youngest guys in this draft. He's got a good playmaking ability. He can go up and get rebounds. He could score at the rim. The 3-point shot was a little bit inconsistent this year in the ACC, but I think it's going to be fine at the NBA level. I would love to see him be a backup point guard, and if it's at the end of the first round, if I'm Denver, if I'm Minnesota, even if I'm Utah again, like I'll use a first-round pick on Carlton Carrington any day of the week. We got our second Kansas Jayhawk here. Coming in at number 26, I have Kevin McCullough, a 5-year college player. Had that extra year because of COVID eligibility. Spent his first 3 years with Texas Tech, the last 2 at Kansas, and he's basically this year's Jaime Jaquez. I do not want to see him go to the Wizards or the Hornets or any like team that's not really that good picking in the later half of the first round. I want to see him go to a team like the Miami Heat, somebody that he can contend and compete with right away, because he could be a good scorer, just kind of a nice, smart floor general off that bench, someone that can set up his teammates, play some pretty solid defense, and obviously knock down some shots, and somebody you can rely on with the ball in his hands in that second unit, because he is one of the more older prospects in this draft. But I would take him in the first round. I didn't really like him in the midseason update, I feel like, or I've just been all over the place with McCullough this year, but I do think I would take him in the first round. Now, it really just depends on the fit that he gets drafted to. Next up at 25, I got Tidjane Salaün coming over from France. This dude is kind of all over the place. So he is 6'9", 200 pounds right now. He is 18 years old, an incredibly raw prospect. He would definitely benefit getting drafted to like an OKC, somebody that has definitely developed international prospects before. And he was very inconsistent this year with his outside jumper. He's going to finish the season around 33% over there in France. And I do think that's going to be a big question mark with his game, because if he's not able to space the floor, I think he's a tweener guy. Like, I don't think he's going to be good enough of a defender to be able to guard 4s and 5s at the NBA level. It's going to take some time for him to develop. He's not like he's pushing 7 feet. He could look small out there against NBA talent, but if he's able to develop that 3-point shot, he could be well worth it as a stretch 4 in this league. So with the question marks, I have him down at 25, but the potential, he could end up as a top 10 player in this class. But another international prospect I like a little bit more, and that's Bobby Klintman, who's playing in the National Basketball League right now. He played at Wake Forest in his freshman year last year, kind of tested the waters in the 2023 draft, decided to go play overseas for a year, and I like his intangibles a little bit more than Tidjane Salaün's. I think he could be a good floor spacer. I think he can be a much better defender than Tidjane Salaün, and I think he fits more as like that prototype 3 and D stretch 4 than Salaün does, but they're pretty close in my opinion, and I have Klintman coming in at 28. 2024. At 23, I have Ryan Dunn out of Virginia. I'm still pretty high on Ryan Dunn. It's just because he has elite defensive potential in this league, and I know he at least has that. Like, if he turns into Matisse Thybulle, he turns into Matisse Thybulle, and that's not that bad for the 23rd overall pick. I mean, Thybulle's making $11 million a year, so you'd be happy with that pick. I mean, Ryan Dunn can do everything. Point of attack defense, off-ball defense, even play some very good post defense as well. He's 6'8". He can put on a little bit more weight as well if he wants to be somewhat better of a post defender. The big question mark about him is his outside jumper. He shot 20% for Virginia last year. No confidence. It doesn't look good. It doesn't. If he could somehow turn it around, like we saw Scotty Barnes, who was not a good three-point shooter at Florida State, turn it around at the NBA level, Ryan Dunn could be a top 10 player in this class, but that is a big if. He definitely needs to get drafted into the right situation, but just off that defense alone, I gotta have him in the top 25. He's coming in at 23. Coming in at number 22, I got Keyshawn George of the Miami Hurricanes. I don't think George is gonna be good right away. Like the first 2 years of that rookie deal, it's gonna be like a lot of trial and error. He's got to go through the ebbs and flows of things at the NBA level. I think you're really drafting him on the potential of the back half of that rookie deal for someone that can mold into a good 3-and-D player. He did shoot 41% from 3 for the Hurricanes this year on 4 attempts a night. He's got good size, 6'8", and could possibly play the 2. That is very encouraging for someone that could be a 3-and-D player in this league, and he has that potential, so he's coming in at 22. Coming in at number 21, I got Yves Missi of the Baylor Bears, someone that could be a good rim runner, pick and roll partner, back to the basket type of big man, you know, your Clint Capellas of the world. He's very efficient inside, but he's pretty much what you'd expect. He's not going to create his own shot. He's not going to take any shot basically outside of 8 feet. He's going to block some shots. He's going to be efficient inside. He can catch some alley-oops. Solid rebounder. Pretty safe prospect. I'll take a 21, but he can handle the ball. You know what? Not too bad for somebody of his size. So I do like that in his game. Off the top 20, we have a very polarizing prospect. It's going to be Zach Edey of the Purdue Boilermakers. So yeah, Zach Edey was an absolute beast in college basketball. He was the best player in all of college basketball last season. He was putting up 30 and 10s like it was nothing in the March Madness tournament. It's just, I don't know, like, what I think about Zach Edey, right? Like, he's very effective with the ball in his hands in the post. This isn't the 90s anymore. No team is giving Zach Edey 8 post-ups a game directly for him to take some hook shots. He can't space the floor. That's obviously a big plus with big men nowadays. He's slow on the defensive end of the floor. You're telling me some of these big men that can handle the rock, like a Karl Anthony Towns or a Chet Holmgren or Victor Wembanyama, like some of these younger guys now, they can handle the rock. I do not trust Zach Edey whatsoever on the perimeter defensively, but I do think he's a safe enough prospect where I would take him as a backup big man in the second half of the first round. I don't think he's ever going to be an all-star, but I think he could be somebody that can provide you 10 to 15 minutes a night, give you maybe 7 points, 5 rebounds, shoot the ball pretty well from inside the paint on twos, but I don't really think he's going to be anything of what we've seen of him in college, at least with those like video game numbers he put up last year for Purdue. Hell of a college player. I think he's going to be a fine NBA player, but I would not take him in the lottery. So coming in at number 19, I have Kel'el Ware, who spent this last season at Indiana. He spent his 2023 season with Oregon. He was a top prospect coming into the 2023 college season. Did not play very well for the Ducks whatsoever, but he had a good bounce back year for Indiana this season. He put up 16 points, 10 rebounds, assists and a half a night. He could also space the floor as well. Shot around 43% on an attempt and a half a night, and I hope he can bring that to the NBA level, and that excites me as a prospect because Ware could be a good rim protector inside. He could run the floor as well. He's super athletic, and if he could space the floor, this would be an absolute steal if you were able to get him outside of the lottery. There are some question marks with his character, his motor that came out of like kind of reporters talked about from Indiana this season, but just off the player alone, I think he's a top 20 guy in this class, coming in at number 19. So coming in at 18, I got Terrence Shannon Jr. of the Illinois Fighting Illini. He was somebody I really wasn't high on as a prospect coming into this year. He is an upperclassman for Illinois. Like Kevin McCullough earlier, spent the 2020, 21, and 22 seasons for the Texas Tech team, and then the last 2 years for Illinois in the Big Ten. I mean, he really started breaking out in that Big Ten tournament and played very well up to the UConn game in the March Madness tournament. He is a true 3-level scorer. He's on the older side, but he can knock down threes. He can shoot the ball well overall from the field and at the line. The defense is fine. He just has a lower ceiling, in my opinion, than some of these other players ahead of him just because he's a little bit older. So maybe he's also similar to Kevin McCullough as like that Jaime Jaquez prototype. I would take him in the top 20 if you need just kind of a scoring wing, but I would not take him in the lottery. I just like some other players above him. Coming in at 17, I have Kyle Filipowski of the Duke Blue Devils. He recently declared for the 2024 NBA draft. He could have been in that 2023 draft last year and definitely would have been a first-round pick, but opted to stay at Duke. I think it helped his stock a little bit. He's a more back-to-the-basket big man as well, but he's a nice offensive hub inside. He could pass the ball. And something he can do that Yves Missi or Zach Edey can't can't, he can space the floor. He's a pretty consistent three-point shooter. He could play the 4, he could play the 5, pretty versatile there, and I like him as a prospect, and I'd be a fan if your team drafted him, basically. All right, somebody I just fell in love with over the last couple of months of college basketball, it's got to be Devin Carter of Providence. He's officially declared for the 2024 draft. He's a junior coming out of Providence. He spent his freshman year at South Carolina, last year at Providence, this year at Providence, and this dude is this year's Brandon Pajemski. I make that comparison all the time, but for someone that's 6'3/6'4", he's a guard. He can play the wing. He's a phenomenal rebounder. He put up 9 rebounds a night for Providence this season, and he can also just fly out of the gym. Like, you know how Josh Hart just flies in, grabs these rebounds, and can get your team another possession? That's what Devin Carter can do. He's also a pretty good playmaker as well, solid court vision, and he can knock down threes. He shot 38% from 3 this season on 7 attempts a night, and on some tough looks as well. This dude can hit some very tough shots, and he can hit some clutch shots, put up 20 points per game. And oh yeah, I even talked about his perimeter defense. He's one of the better perimeter defender guards in this class. Can also block a shot or two as well. I'm in love with Devin Carter, and as I'm like watching more and more film, I may have him even higher in this ranking as we get closer to the draft in June. So coming in at number 15, it's one of my favorite prospects in this class. It's Tyler Smith of the G League Ignite. I'm definitely higher on Tyler Smith than the consensus because this dude has a sweet looking jumper, a good ball handle for someone that can play the 4, he can play the 5. He's 6'11", 220, so he does need to put on a little bit of weight, but I love his rim protecting defense for the G League Ignite this season, and what was just an absolute nightmare environment. Like, the NBA disbanded the G League Ignite, so you know how like Smith and Ethan Amonsa, and we'll get to Buzelis and Holland, like they were in such a poor environment this season to progress and develop. And Smith shot 48% from the field. He shot 36% from 3 on 4 attempts a night. He could space the floor as a 6'11" big man. I also think he could pass a little bit as well, above average out of the post. I really like Tyler Smith a ton. I would take him right in that lottery range, and honestly, leading up to the process, if he kills the workouts in the combine, he could be a top 10 pick. Coming in at number 14, I have Dalton Connect, who played last year for the Tennessee Volunteers. He's had a really cool college story. He played JUCO basketball in 2020 and 2021, then spent the last 2 years at Northern Colorado, and this year transferred over to Tennessee, played in the SEC, and was a top 3 player in all of college basketball. You could say he was the second best player in all of college basketball outside of Zach Edey, and he's somebody that is one of the best scorers in this class. He put up 22 points and 5 rebounds for the Volunteers, shot 46% from the field and 40% from 3, looked pretty good in the March Madness tournament as well. I just don't think he has a super high ceiling. I think his peak is probably like a 6-man, 7th man off the bench that can get you a bucket or 2 when you need it in that second unit. I wonder how the game is going to kind of transcend for him in the next level. It's a lot quicker, and he's not going to be able to slow it down as much, and the defense is going to be a lot more physical as well, which I kind of worry about Connect and how he's going to handle that at the next level, but he's a super fun prospect coming in at number 14 for me. Coming in at number 13, I got Jacoby Walter, the second Baylor Bear, here in the top 30. I still like Walter. I've dropped him a little bit since the midseason update, but I still am higher on him than the consensus, I think. I would still 100% take him in the lottery. The potential is there. 6'5", 200 pounds. He needs to put on a little bit more of weight, but I do think he has good defensive potential in the league because of how physical he can be and his speed and athleticism. The efficiency kind of took a hit over the second half of the college season, ended up shooting just 37% from the field, but 34% from 3 and 80% from the line gives me confidence that he could be somewhat of a 3-and-D player at the next level and have a good ball handle. He just needs some time to develop, so it all depends on where he gets drafted to and how much they prioritize his development at the next level. And that's kind of similar for my number 12 prospect. It's Cody Williams, who has fallen a little bit since my midseason update. He was my number 1 college player, I believe, at that time as well. And I don't know, Cody Williams is a weird prospect to evaluate. Obviously, the younger brother of Jalen Williams didn't really look all that confident in March Madness. I mean, he looked a little bit better against Florida in the round of 64, but he finished the season with 12 points, 3 rebounds, shot 55% from the field and 41% from 3, but he was not a good free throw shooter and only took 1.7 threes a night. So he took not a ton of threes, shot 41% from downtown, which is encouraging because he was not a good 3-point shooter in high school, but that free throw percentage makes me a little scared on how he's going to be at the next level. Is he going to be as passive as he was at Colorado, where he was like the 3rd best player on that team? And I like Tristan Da Silva. I like KJ Simpson a ton, and they were great for Colorado last year. And at times, Cody Williams was good, but he was coming off the bench, didn't show a lot of confidence, especially in the clutch as well. He's a polarizing prospect. I think off the potential alone, I would still take him in the lottery, but I don't think I would take him in that top 7 range. So coming in at number 11, it's Isaiah Collier. Now, I think Collier would be a little bit higher for teams, especially going in mocks, if he had a little bit more positional versatility, because he's a a true point guard. He is 6'5", and he's an okay enough shooter where he could play off ball, but I feel like you're really drafting him to be that one for you. And the playmaking ability is a little questionable if he's going to be a good enough facilitator at the next level. Honestly, kind of like some Colin Sexton comparisons for him as well. He shot 34% from 3 at USC, 67% from the line, so I do worry about his jumper, but he's an absolute bruiser. He's a bowling ball. He's so good at driving to the rim and getting to the foul line. So if he could hit a couple more free throws, he could have averaged 18, 19, 20 points per game this season for the Trojans. That really wasn't a great environment as well. They were not a good Pac-12 team, but I do think Isaiah Collier is on that borderline of a top 10 prospect in this draft because he has all the tools in the world. So to kick off the top 10, we're going somebody just based off of his potential, and that is Montes Buzelis of the G League Ignite. So I talked about it with Tyler Smith and Ethan Almanza. Horrible environment for the G League Ignite this season. But there is two ways that Buzelis' career can go. First one is like the really scary option where his shot just does not develop whatsoever. He shot 27% from 3 and 67% from the line. It didn't look bad. Like, he's got a solid form, but it was just not falling whatsoever. There are definitely questions with his shot selection as well. And he was someone that was a top prospect coming into the season, opted for the Ignite, and I don't really think developed much there. But there are so many tools in his game because he can handle the ball so well for somebody at 6'10", so much positional versatility, and if he could put on a little bit of more weight, he can get more physical because he has such a high competitive gene. He could be one of the best ball handling forwards in this league because he could really score at the rim and he can hit some tough NBA caliber shots that we saw this past season for the Ignite. But I'm a little scared about his jumper, and that's why I have him at 10, and I think I'm being conservative with him. But if he somehow figures it out and that ball handling is really translatable for somebody of his size, he could be an absolute steal if you get him around that 10th overall pick range. But there's just two completely different end of the spectrum outcomes for Montes Buzelis, and I'm a little bit scared that it's trending towards the one where he doesn't develop a shot and he doesn't get more physical and he's just going to get bodied by NBA bigs in the post. Coming in at number 9, I got Jared McCain. Yes, I do think that Jared McCain is a top 10 prospect in this draft. I honestly think he's a little bit towards Emmanuel Quickley. Now, I do question McCain's playmaking ability, but you know what? Emmanuel Quickley is someone that could average 7-8 assists this year for the Raptors. Quickley only averaged an assist and a half a night in his career at Kentucky. McCain averaged 2 assists and was a primary off-ball player. Like Tyrese Proctor, Jeremy Roach, they were handling the rock. McCain was running off ball and was phenomenal at that. I think McCain is a top 3 shooter in this class. He shot 46% from the field, 41% from 3, and 89% from the line. He can hit some tough shots. He can play off ball, catch and shoot. This dude is a phenomenal shooter, and I think he's a top 10 prospect in this draft. All right, coming in at number 8, it's going to be Reed Sheppard of the Kentucky Wildcats. Now, the moment I'm recording this, there are some rumors that Sheppard could return to Lexington and play another year for the Wildcats. It seems like he loves it there. And if Sheppard does declare for the 2024 draft, he's a top 10 prospect. The advanced analytics love him. He shot 54% from the field, 52% from 3, 83% from the line. He could facilitate 4.5 assists. He's 6'3", could play up a little bit if he can get a little bit stronger. He's a solid rebounder, and he could score inside the paint. He could score from deep. He's one of the best and I think safest prospects in this draft when you're looking at guards specifically, and I would 100% take Sheppard in the top 10, especially if he can be like a good connector piece, like if he ends up in Memphis, if he ends up in Charlotte, or even if he ends up in Toronto, and he could definitely develop in those environments, but could also help the development of his younger teammates out there as well. Coming in at number 7, I have Sheppard's teammate at Kentucky, Rob Dillingham. Dillingham will be going into the 2024 draft, and like McCain, I think he's one of the best shooters in this class. You could say he is the best shooter in this class. Shot 48% from the field, 44% from 3, 80% from the line, 15 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists a night at Kentucky. There are some questions with his playmaking ability. Like, I don't know if he's ever going to average 8+ assists in the league, but I do think he could be a good enough facilitator where he could be your starting point guard. I'd love it if he ended up in San Antonio to play with Wemby. There are some question marks with his defense. He's 6'2", 170 pounds. And with the NBA like kind of transitioning into getting more bigger guards, that it could be a mismatch for Dillingham, especially if he's trying to be a defender in the post, or you could switch on him as well in the pick and roll. So that is definitely a little bit of a weakness in Dillingham's game, but he's a phenomenal offensive player, and he's coming in at number 7 for me. Coming in at number 6, I have Zachary Risache playing over there in France. Did not have a good end to his season over there in international play whatsoever. Was pretty inefficient, and you could definitely see the question marks in his shot creating ability. I don't know if he's going to be a good enough shot creator to warrant a top 5 pick in this draft, because he's got all the intangibles in the world, and that's the thing with Risache coming over, is his potential. He's 6'9", he can space space the floor, and definitely has a more polished game than like a Bobby Klitman or a Tijan Salon. I like his ball handling ability. He can play well in transition. He's super athletic, but in the half-court sets, if he's not going to be a consistent three-point shooter where you could space the floor and use that versatility with him, I don't think he's worth a top 5 pick in this draft. So I'm a little bit lower on Reese Shea than the consensus. I would not take him 1 or 2. Maybe you can convince me number 3 if the way the top 2 picks go and who's picking where, but I'm going to have Reese Shea at 6. That could be a hot take. Coming in at number 5, a lot of risk to his game like Reese Shea, and that's going to be Nikola Topic, a point guard who spent some time with Red Star this year over in Serbia, played a little EuroLeague ball before he ended up getting injured, but he's your prototypical like modern day point guard that you would love. He's 6'6", 200 pounds. He's physical on the defensive end of the floor. He's got great size where he can get over taller defenders that get switched on him and still be a phenomenal playmaker. I mean, he's also a perfect fit if he ends up in San Antonio to be that lead guard for Wembanyama. There's a lot of question marks about his game. Don't get me wrong. There's some major question marks with his outside shot. Shot 28% from 3 on decent enough volume, but he's an elite free throw shooter. So I think that jumper will come, and I don't think he's going to be somebody that's taking 6-7 threes a night, but if he can be consistent enough on 2 to 3 threes a night and still be an elite free throw shooter, he's definitely worth a top 5 pick in this draft, and in my opinion is the best point guard prospect in this class. Coming in at number 4, we have one of the more safer prospects in this draft, and that's Donovan Clingan, the second-year man out of UConn. He has 2 national titles under his belt. Obviously, you've heard his name a lot over the last couple of weeks. He's risen up and skyrocketed up mock drafts and draft boards alone, and he does have the intangibles to be an elite rim protector in this league, somebody that has great switchability in the pick and roll on the defensive end of the floor. He's quick enough, agile enough where he can guard quicker forwards and wings. That we saw that throughout March Madness against Illinois, against Alabama, and against Purdue. He could be an elite shot blocker, an elite rebounder, and someone that could put up a consistent 16 and 10 points if he has a good enough environment around him and teammates, and he could be a great pick and roll partner. There's some amazing fits that I would love if he ended up in Portland playing with Scoot Henderson. I think he would be great also if he ended up in Washington and could be a great center next to either Bilal Coulibaly or Deni Avdija at the 4 spot. Hey, even if he ended up in Memphis playing with Triple J in that front court, that would be an amazing fit for Clingan. I think he's a top 5 prospect in this draft. Coming in at number 3, I have Clingan's teammate at UConn. It's going to be Stephon Castle. Yes, he's also kind of skyrocketed up draft boards as of late as well, and there are some elite defensive potential in him on the perimeter, and I think just having an elite defensive wing alone could earn you a spot into this top 10. There are going to be some question marks with Stephon Castle, like there's some question marks with Nikola Topic's outside shot. The guy at number 2 that I have, there's question marks with his outside jumper. A ton of guys in this class have question marks with their outside shot, and it's funny because if Castle was like a 33% three-point shooter instead of 26%, he would be maybe the number 1 pick in this draft. But I do think at times, like for this UConn offense specifically, it wasn't catered to him. It wasn't catered to his development. Yes, he did develop pretty well playing with guys like Cam Spencer and Alex Caravan and Tristan Newton at UConn this year, and he was a phenomenal slasher, phenomenal cutter, and he knows where to be on the floor. Very high Q for somebody as a freshman this year for UConn, was a vital part to their championship run, could be an elite off-ball player in this league, and if he develops a shot, I'll use the Scotty Barnes comparison with him and my number 2 guy. If he could find somewhat of a consistent three-point shot, he could be an elite 3-and-D player in this class, but could also have 20 point per game potential because he's got good ball handling ability. He can play the 1, he can play the 2, he can play the 3, he can play the 4. Ton of positional versatility. I'm a big fan of Stephon Castle, coming in at number 3. And coming in at number 2, I have Ron Holland of the G League Ignite. There's a lot of question marks with Ron Holland's outside jumper. He was below average for the Ignite this season on spot-up threes, playing off-screen or in handoffs. But man, there's so much to love about Holland. In my opinion, he's the most athletic prospect in this draft. He has elite defensive potential, off ball, on ball, switchability, can guard 1 through 4 at a very high level. He's a phenomenal transition player. He's a phenomenal pick and roll ball handler. He can cut, he can slash, but if he can develop that outside shot, and I think he could be there. I like the form, and he shot fine enough at 76% from the line, and it looks good that I think he could develop an outside shot, and if he does, he could be the best player in this class. He's coming in at number 2. I'm super high on Ron Holland. But coming in number 1, I do have Alex Sarr over from France. Played for Perth in the National Basketball League last year, and Sarr has a high enough ceiling to go number 1, but I also think he has a high enough floor, even though there are some questions with his game, is a super safe prospect, because I think at his worst, he's still an elite rim protector. He's a physical enough big man that can also handle the ball very well with somebody of his size. The three-point shot has been consistent at times, but if he could develop that outside shot for somebody with his elite rim protecting potential, he can handle the ball very well. And what I like about his game more than some other big men in this class, he can guard other bigs outside on the perimeter. He's somebody you could put up against Chet Holmgren. He's somebody you could put up against Victor Wembanyama on that perimeter, and has that athleticism and speed for somebody that's 7'1" that can guard these freaks and aliens that are coming into the NBA at the 5 spot. And that's why I think Alex Sarr is my #1 prospect in this draft, and I don't think that's going to change leading up to the 2024 draft. And here are some prospects that didn't make this video that were in the preseason top 30 ranking or the midseason ranking. The preseason ranking is kind of funny because obviously so much has changed. DJ Wagner, he was a top 5 player for me from Kentucky. He's not here. You have Justin Edwards, who was a top 10 player for me, also not here at Kentucky. Just those guys, their stock kind of diminished this year. Ade Mara at UCLA just was a highly touted international prospect coming over to UCLA. Did not work out. Marco Jackson at Kansas, he didn't make it either. Trayvon Brazile at Arkansas, Bronny James at USC, Elliot Cadeau at UNC, Mark Mitchell at Duke, Dylan Mitchell at Texas, and Adem Bona, all from the preseason rankings that didn't make it here. And a couple of those guys were in the midseason update, but then the guys that weren't in the preseason, that were in the midseason, that didn't make it here at the end of the season, you do have Tyrese Proctor from Duke. He's staying there, actually. Alex Caravan at UConn, and PJ Hall at Clemson. So that is going to be for me. I hope you guys did enjoy. Drop a thumbs up if you did. Let me know what you guys think of this prospect ranking in the comments below. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? And maybe who's some prospects that I didn't mention that you would have in your top 30? Please let me know in the comments. Thank you again, Underdog, for sponsoring today's video. Make sure you use code SROS, SROS, for 100% deposit match up to $100. You really can't beat it. I love you guys. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.